Namaste to everybody. As we decided earlier, our meeting will start with a podcast first. Afterwards, we'll review the minutes of the earlier meeting and plan of action subsequently. Today's podcast is by Dr. Prasanna. Incidentally, he is also an alumni of Jnana Prabodhini, who are already associated with this particular project. In fact, we have a very long relationship with Jnana Prabodhini. Their founder Appa Pense and our founder Eknathji Nanade, they were contemporary. And luckily, subsequently, the 2 or 3 generations, we have a regular association. And we always take help of each other's organization. I'm happy that Prasanna has joined us today for podcast. He basically did his graduation from Fergusson College, Pune in Microbiology, and then he went for post-graduation actually to a University of East Anglia, Norwich in England. His M.Sc is in biotechnology. Subsequently, he worked as a lecturer in Fergusson College before going again to Singapore for doing his PhD. His PhD is in Marine Biotechnology, which he completed in the year 2017. And subsequently, he returned to India and co-founded a company called Lemnion Green Solutions Private Limited, which promotes and provides low-cost, low-maintenance, eco-friendly solutions and services to the environmental problems. His specialization is in designing nature-based systems for wastewater treatment and articulating rejuvenation of polluted and neglected water bodies. That is a specialization. Some of you must have seen YouTube's of his work, wonderful work which he has done in this particular field. Currently, he is also associated, in fact, he is working for International Water Association, and he is heading the South Asia operations as a manager, which includes operation in the countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, Lanka, India, and Pakistan. Dr. Prasanna has a holistic approach for water management, which includes multidisciplinary view of ecosystem with water as a prime component. I'm happy that Prasanna has agreed with a very short notice to give a podcast. Before he starts his podcast, I'm very curious to know that why he has named Lemnion Green Solutions. What is the significance of the word Lemnion? Over to Prasanna. Prasanna, you please keep your camera on. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction, and I think it's a pleasure to present my views and present my work over here. So I will quickly share my screen.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much again. And Vasudev, the question that you asked, why I named my company as Lemnion Green Solutions, because when I was in UK doing my master's, I worked on a small plant called duckweed. And duckweed is an excellent phytoremediator. It phytoremediates or treats wastewater very effectively. And the scientific name for duckweed is, it comes from the family called Lemniaceae. And using duckweed was, primarily the core part of what we wanted to do. And from Lemniaceae family, the name Lemnion comes. So that's the reason for naming it Lemnion. To begin with today's presentation, so today we are going to talk about water. And to start the presentation, I would like to share a slide, which was a photograph taken in this October, like few days back, in Chennai. And because on 15th and 16th of October, there was a red alert for cyclone in Chennai because of the northeast monsoons. And within even one day of heavy rain, this was the condition. And there were a lot of concerns about flood conditions and flood mitigation, safety. And the reason being the experience from last year, which was in December 2023, when cyclone Michong it hit Chennai coast, and it created a lot of havoc. There was flood, and there was a lot of damage to the infrastructure as well as human life. So when we look at these pictures, there is one question that arises in our head, that how can a city manage its water efficiently? And when we think about this question, first of all, what we need to do, I guess, is try to look at different reasons that why the water is not getting managed efficiently. And in this slide, I have a few reasons, or the reasons that I have identified. So in the first photograph, you can see a lot of encroachment which has happened along the rivers.
Prasanna, please change the slides. Slides are not changing.
Oh, I see the slides changed, but I don't know why.
What about others?
Right. So just to go back, the previous photos that I showed were these. So this was October 2024, which was few days back. And this was December 2023 when Cyclone Michong hit the Chennai coast. So there was a lot of damage to the infrastructure and human life as well. And then these are the several reasons which I've tried to identify why we cannot manage our water efficiently, especially in urban areas. So in the first picture, you can see a lot of encroachment which has happened along the river. Then the second one is when it comes to water supply as well as for the drainage system, the pipelines, there is a lot of leakage, and which leads to non-revenue water as we know it. Third is we have been excessively getting the groundwater out of the groundwater reservoirs that we have and utilizing that water. Third one would be the concretization, which is a very big part of infrastructural development, as we call it. So it might be on the roads, it might be on the pavements. So everywhere we have been concretizing the surfaces, and which makes it impermeable for water to seep through and go into the groundwater reservoirs as well. We have also concretized our riverfronts. So this is a picture from Sabarmati riverfront. Another reason could be the solid waste, which is getting dumped into the nalas. So these nalas are supposed to be stormwater runoffs of the city, and they are supposed to carry the excessive rainwater from the city to the water body or to any reservoir. But because of a lot of solid waste which is getting dumped into these nalas, there is a lot of clogging which is happening. Then third one is excessive discharge of used water into the streams, rivers, and all the water, I would say, ponds or lakes that we have. And the last one is, yes, we do have wastewater treatment plants which exist, but the question is again on the efficiency of these wastewater treatment systems. Are we able to treat a lot of wastewater that is generated or used water that is generated through these wastewater treatment systems that we have? Now, all these reasons, they come together, and as a system for water management, it can be very detrimental to manage the water very effectively. And when we talk about the system, I have this urge of comparing this system with a human body. So when we look at, I hope the slides are getting changed now. So in that video that you saw, so duckweed was actually made a hero. And however, duckweed is very important, but duckweed is one part of the solution that we have. So it's not the entire solution, but in the holistic approach, duckweed is one thing or one of the factors that we use very efficiently.
In fact, the duckweed looks almost like a azola, if I remember. In fact, yes, we have a lot of problem. Many people, they don't understand, and then we always feel duckweed is our enemy. We want azola to promote.
True. However, there are, if you compare duckweed and azolla, there are several pros and cons of that as well. And, that's a very different, interesting discussion also.
Prasanna, you'll be happy to know that we are famous for azolla technology. We are spread all over India. Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware.
Okay. Over to you again. Please go ahead.
All right. Sridharji, next. So these slides we have already gone through. This was the situation in October. In December 2023, next. This was the question that we posed, that how can a city manage its water efficiently? These were some of the reasons behind that, which were identified. And at the end of this, I talked about, if we want to think of water management as a system, I have this urge of comparing the system to a human body. Next. So if you look at human body, there are different systems that we have, and if I want to compare this with the water management, so the skeletal system would be the inherent or natural water structures that we have, which exist or which existed even before the urbanization or the settlements took place. The respiratory system, since it keeps us living, it's more about natural water bodies and its ecological functions. Then muscular system is something that we build over time, and which is water related infrastructure that we have. It can be about storage, supply, as well as drainage. Then circulatory system is quite important because it's pipe networks for the fresh and used water. Then digestive system, along with liver and kidneys, they can be compared with the used water management or the wastewater management, as we call it. And I think the most important is the nervous system, because it's like a feedback system for administration, monitoring, and maintenance of these different systems. Next. So when we want to have a healthy body as a system, we need to have a robust structure, we need to have good muscle development, we need to have proper functioning. And next, how we keep it healthy is through maintenance, through exercise, healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, a routine, and different routine checkups that we keep doing. Next. However, there are certain diseases and ailments that we go through, and some of the diseases or ailments are internal, some of them can be external. For example, getting a fracture is something which is external, and then we have to have external help for that. So when something goes wrong, the internal help that we get is our immune system, and the external help that we get is the medicines that we take or when we visit the doctor. So going further, similarly with the next. Similarly, the water management system, we can look at it in two ways. So there is a natural water system or natural water management system which has been existing for many years. So it can include rains, mountains, then the water is passed on through rivers, they are stored in lakes, through rivulets and streams, they used to go to the intended purpose, and then there was usage. Then the wetlands which existed before, they took care of this used water or wastewater by treating them. And then eventually there was surface runoff, streams, rivers, and eventually it went into the ocean. When we compare it with the artificial water management system, next. So now instead of the natural storage systems, we have dams which we built on the river. For supply, we have pipelines, we have freshwater treatment plants, we have water supply network. Then there is usage of water, and after that, instead of wetlands, now we have drainage systems, we have wastewater treatment plants, we have water reuse. However, it goes on, and then finally it goes into the ocean. When we look at these two, what comes out very primarily is water bodies are at the center of this water management system. And that is something which I'm going to talk about today. Next. So why is a water body very important? Because a water body can cater as a water source. It can cater as, it can give the sediments for the agriculture. It acts as carbon sink. It regulates the temperature for us. It works as a flood mitigation system. It also provides livelihood. It also has its own ecosystem functions or ecological functions that are very beneficial to humans as well. And the list goes on. There are many more benefits of a water body. But currently, next, what is the situation of these water bodies? So currently in India, only 30% of the used water or wastewater is treated using wastewater treatment system. So either it can be we have limited infrastructure, and it also depends on the efficiency of the existing infrastructure. The remaining 70% of the water, it drains into these rivers or water bodies that we have. And here is some statistics that India is dying rivers. So number of river stretches that were identified in one of the surveys was 445, and the number of polluted river stretches was around 275. So more than 50% of the river stretches are heavily polluted. Now, next, so when we look at a river system, there are different aspects to it. Next, so when we look at the river in a rural area, which is a natural form of a river, I am sure we all must have visited rural areas or even mountains or where the river is least disturbed. So there we have some agriculture from where the fertilizers or pesticide runoff comes into the river. And from the domestic areas or from small villages, there is used water and also solid waste which comes into the river. If you see the form of the river, I have given the meanders or twists and turns. And this is how inherent form of a river should be. And these meanders, they help in, throwing the sediments out, in which sediments the agriculture flourished in the beginning. So these meanders are really important. But next, when we come to the urban areas, in urban areas, we have industries, we have heavily dense domestic areas. There is absence of ecological diversity because, as we have seen in the previous slide, we have cut down all the trees, we have concretized our rivers, all the wastewater, solid waste from industrial as well as domestic areas gets into the river. There are a lot of encroachments on the sides. And unfortunately, what has happened over the years is we have encroached into the floodplains, and then we complain about floods. So having floods is a natural form of river, or it's part of its life. So river has to flood. If the river does not flood, it is not a healthy river. Then there is high organic loading, and because of that high organic loading, we see problems like water hyacinth or invasive species growing very rampantly in our water bodies. There is silt deposition, which is very gradual. Since there are no twists and turns, there is no change in water velocity. These are the problems that we are facing. Next. So this is one example, and this will give you a very good idea. This is an example of Mutha River from Pune, and I've got the maps from 2005 till 2015. And you can see how the riverbed has changed over a period of time. How in 2009-10 people started concretizing, we started concretizing the channel, and you can see the width of the river has become like 1/3 of what it was. So what we are doing is we are forcing the river to flow through the concretized channel that we have built for the river. And that's mainly because we wanted to encroach the land, we wanted to settle there, we wanted to maximize the land use in those areas. And then we thought that, okay, by restricting the river, we can let the river flow very fast and there won't be any floods. But on the contrary, that increased the flood conditions. Next. So with this background, as Vasudevji mentioned, then I'm going to talk about one of the case studies that we worked on, and this case study was featured by Better India a few days back or a few months back. So it is about the Kamandalu River rejuvenation project that we worked on. Next. So this Kamandalu River, to give you a brief background, it's located in Kauthe Mahakal, which is a small village near Sangli district in Maharashtra. Kauthe Mahakal is a village of around 40,000 population, and we do have land use data for that. And so one important or one interesting aspect about this was when we went there, people did not call the river a river. People did not even know the name. People used to call it Nala. And that was, the name which was given to that water body. And when we dug deeper, we found historical evidence about what is what was the importance of this river. So you see a picture of goddess, and this idol was found by a shepherd in this river. So religious importance was also there, but people unfortunately did not know about this story. So going further, next. So I will tell you about the problems that we identified, and to identify those problems. So what I'm trying to tell you here is the approach behind rejuvenation of a water body, or how do we approach any particular project. So there are a lot of surveys that are needed. There is mapping of the river, ecological surveys, what is the current ecological condition, what is the flora and fauna. We also need to have hydrogeological survey, because geology plays a major role in water bodies. Water quality and quantity, how much water has been used from the river, how much water is getting back into the river as used water. Then we also did public interviews and questionnaires through which we got to know about what was the use of the river in historical times or in the past. Next. After doing all the surveys, we identified different problems. So first of all, there was no awareness about water body, or what is the importance of the water body. Then there was a lot of encroachment. You see this house, it's right at the bank of the river, and you can see the wastewater being dumped directly into the river. There were multiple nalas like this which were taking the wastewater from the entire village and dumping it into the river. The area was not clean. There was a lot of solid waste which was dumped. Next. And a part of which I said before that because of this high organic loading, there is a lot of eutrophication which had happened. So there was a lot of wild vegetation, and you can see here that water is hardly visible in the river. Next. Solid waste which was dumped, there was a lot of sludge deposition, and you can see that the bridge was meant to be on the river, but all you see is land. So these were some of the problems that we faced when we started working on this, or when we surveyed this river. Next. So the next important step was identifying different stakeholders for the river. So there were direct stakeholders, there were indirect stakeholders. Indirect stakeholders could be, who don't directly take decisions about the river, but they are affected by the condition of the river, of the water body. So different ULBs, NGOs, funding agencies. We also needed a political support, which we got, and we were very happy that son of Mr. R.R. Patil, Rohit Patil, he supported us during this project. There were a lot of temples along the river, because historically and religiously we have this, all the temples that we have, they're mostly situated along the river, because there is a flowing water around it, and it used to be a very peaceful area in the beginning or in the past. Then we also looked at the residents, tourists, and academic institutes which were present. So these were all the stakeholders. So once we identified the stakeholders, next, then it was time to map those stakeholders. So you can see there is this graph where we divide into 4 quadrants, and according to the interest and the influence, we have mapped these stakeholders which were identified and which we talked to. So high interest, high influence could be politicians. Low interest, high influence could be temples and ULBs, because they had no interest in the health of the river, but they were the influential bodies in that area. Then high interest, low influence. So for example, residents, because their life is quite entangled with the health of the river or the water body. So they were interested in doing something about it, but they had very low influence. Then tourists and residents, again, some of the residents and the tourists, low interest, low influence. So that's how we mapped all the stakeholders, and then we decided how to deal with them personally. Next. The next step was designing and planning. So after the survey, we did a lot of visits. We discussed it with the local people, local politicians, then different academic institutes which are there. And then we came up with a plan. And when the plan was ready, the next step was the execution. So then the execution started. We got help from NAM Foundation. Then Rohit Patil, as I said, a politician, he helped us a lot with that, with the funding mainly. Then there was excavation. Then we built some in-stream structures into the river. So these in-stream structures, they regulate the velocity of water or flow of the water. Then we needed to stabilize the banks, which were very loosely held by then. Then we also wanted to implement some phytoremediation based systems. As in the problem slide, I mentioned that there were several nalas which were joining into the river, which were taking the wastewater from the village and dumping it into the river. So phytoremediation based systems were planned. Next. So then coir lining on the slopes or on the banks, and this coir lining was really important because when we do the excavation and when we dump the sediments on the sides, it is very loosely held. So the coir lining helps to put it on place, and in the coir lining we started planting. So over the period of time, the roots of these plants, they hold the soil, and then the coir lining, it decomposes into the soil. Next. Most important part was awareness. So we had meetings with all these temples. They had their own managing bodies. So we had we tried to okay. So we tried to explain it to them, what is the importance of river for them. We got students from different colleges. We in their Grama Sabhas, we participated and we told people. In fact, there was a very interesting incident, and we were thinking about how we can reach out to more people. And then we realized that every Wednesday, they have an aarti in the main temple that they have. So on one Wednesday in the evening, so Aarti was going on. There were around 300-400 people who had gathered for the Aarti. And we just went there, we set up our system, we set up a screen, and I started giving a presentation once the Aarti was done. So initially there were a couple of people who stood there and who looked at the presentation and listened to what I was talking about. And I think within a span of 15-20 minutes, there were around 200-250 people who were listening to what I was saying, because they were interested in the river, or they were interested in the health of the water body. And that's how we started the conversation. And there was a time when, since the river was in the middle of the village, when we were working there, random villagers used to come to us, used to congratulate us, used to, like, you are doing a very good work. If you need anything, please let us know. So I think that is the power of awareness. If you tell people how it is important for them, they will take interest in this. Next. Generating local employment. So my team was only of 3 or 4 people which were working in Kaute Mahankar. However, we got one supervisor from the village itself and a team of around 30 workers from around the area. And we generated employment for them for around 3 to 4 months. And they used to work, they used to come in the morning, work with us. We used to have food together. And it was a very lively gesture that they showed us, because when there were festivals, they invited us over to have lunch with them, and we celebrated all the festivals together. So they were also, and when these local labor, they started working on the project. So initially they were a bit hesitant, right? They were like, what are we doing? And why are we doing this? But over the period of time, over let's say 2 or 3 months, they started seeing the results of their work. And when they started seeing the results, they started owning the work. And they were so proud that I have worked on my river. And this is the ownership of any water body that is needed for long-term maintenance or monitoring of that water body. Next. So I think we started the work in February, we finished the work in around June, and then there were monsoon, and then post-monsoon, this was the condition. So along the river, people started coming to the river, and people started enjoying the river because the river started to look nicer. The river started to look more ecological. There were fish in the river. People started coming there to fish. Then there were certain islands that we made on which plantation was there, which used to look very barren in the beginning. Now there was one more problem. Since there was water, since there was flowing water in the river, these ladies from the village, they started coming there to wash their clothes and utensils. So in turn, we worked on it and we prepared a separate area for them where they could come and wash. And after that area, we also implemented a phytoremediation system so that used water can also be treated before it gets into the river. Of course, the plantation that we did, it started growing. There was a good, biodiversity which started flourishing in that area. Next. So these are some before and after pictures. So the first photo that you see, that there is a lot of wild vegetation, the sediment has collected, and then when we cleaned it or when we excavated it, we realized that the width of the river was too huge. And that was the reason, since the width was narrowed through human interventions and through encroachments, that was the problem of flooding. That was the reason for flooding in that area. And this year, when we worked on it, there were no floods because the water, the carrying capacity of the river was increased and the water started flowing from in the river channel. So the second one is again heavy wild vegetation, and you can see that we created these natural bunds through which it helped for water velocity regulation as well as it helped in filtration of water. Next. Now this was about the river. So what about the smaller systems? So the next one is a small project that we did in Vadgaon district near Pune. Next. So this is something which is possible through, as I mentioned in the beginning, that even for our human body, we need some external help. So with some external help, what is possible? This is a proof for that. So next. You can see that there are several factors. So impact, we tried to calculate the impact of the work that we did. Then there was a good canopy which was restored. There was riparian vegetation because after we excavated and put the sludge on the banks, we started plantation after the coir lining. The flow was regulated through the bunds which were created during the stream. Then the bank was stabilized, and because of the stabilized bank, the sediments did not come back again into the stream, and the stream's water holding capacity or water carrying capacity was increased. There was aquatic biodiversity. Even in this small stream, there were fish, and the kids came there to catch the fish. They were enjoying, that scenery, those flowers which were there. Next. So that is the same stream which is downstream of the previous part, which is right into the middle of the village, and you can see the previous conditions and the conditions after. On the photo in the left, you can see on the left hand side there is one pipe which is coming out. So that was the pipe which was bringing in used water from the surrounding areas into the nala, and that's where we created this phytoremediating system. You can see a lot of Colocasia and a lot of canna which was planted there. So this system helped in treating that wastewater or used water before it entered into the channel. Now after this work, there were monsoons, and Vadgaon gets heavy monsoon, and we were worried, or the local authorities were concerned about the robustness of this system. And then in the monsoon, the water level was as high as you see the walls. Till the tip of the walls, the water was there. And when the water receded, none of the stones were unturned. All the plants, because of the water flow, they were just tilted and they got back to normal in a few days. So that gives you the idea about how robust these natural systems are. They can withstand heavy rains, they can withstand heavy flows, and in turn they treat the water for us. Next. So again, there are these impact criteria, that aesthetic improvement. And one interesting thing, that on the right hand side of the photo, where you see a slight shade coming out. So that is actually one of the temples in the village. And outside there is some area where people used to sit, then they eat prasad, and then they throw all the garbage into the nala. And when we went there after monsoon, I think after 6 months from our execution, and it was quite clean. And then people were still sitting there. We asked them that, okay, what happened? Why are you not throwing the garbage into the nala now? And they were like, no, we see flowers, there is greenery, it looks beautiful, the water is clean, so we don't feel like throwing the garbage. So this is the behavioral change that we observed after doing this very small change. We worked on this for about 2 months or so. And the change was very visible and it was well received by the residents. So when people see something beautiful or something very natural, when they see the greenery, they don't tend to throw the garbage into the system. That is something that we have realized. Next. Now, in situ treatment. So this is something that we implemented in a small village near Pune again. So on the top photo, you see one drainage line channel or the manhole. So from that manhole, and essentially this drainage line was dumping all the used water into the river. So what we did was we diverted 20,000 liters of used water every day. We ran it through this system. So this system is a stepped wetland system. And you can see that when it passes through the system, in a few months or within a period of 2 or 3 months, the system started looking like this, the second photo at the bottom. So it merges with the nature and in turn it treats the wastewater for you. So for this project, we got IGBC, the platinum certificate for the project that we implemented as well. And this thing is very feasible. It can be done in multiple locations where the water is entering directly into the river. And that in situ treatment is possible. Next. Now, to end the presentation, I would like to go with the Australian proverb, which talks about if the water is healthy, the land is healthy. And if the land is healthy, then the people and culture will be healthy. And I would like to add on to that, the health of the water depends primarily on the health of the water bodies. Next. And in the end, I would like to ask a few questions for the further discussion, that which approach you think is better, whether anthropocentric or biocentric, whether proactive approach or a reactive approach, and holistic approach versus reductionistic approach. Thank you. Next. Thank you so much. Vasudevji, over to you.
Yeah, very nice presentation. Particularly, it is a learning process for us how to prepare slides. Maybe because of your international exposure, quality of slides was really wonderful.
Thank you,
over to Madan. Please, you can throw it open to the group members for asking questions.
Thank you. Looking forward for the questions from the working group. Kindly please reflect on the presentation.
Good morning, sir. Actually, I joined the presentation a little late, but I understood the high-level concept. My only question to you is, were you initially able to engage the villagers in the activity that you are doing? I mean, I understand once they see the benefits, they are able to come in and join. But I mean, when I pull in some organizations, the immediate question that they are asking is, are they ready to be involved from the beginning? Because otherwise, whatever the work that we do in the beginning, and then we come out of it, especially the treatment session that we did recently, where not much villagers were involved. So we had some trouble. So I just wanted to know whether you were able to initially explain your concept to them and then involve the villagers.
Yes, I think that's an excellent question, because that is one of the most important criteria or one important factor when it comes to water body rejuvenation. We need to have support from the residents or from the locals. No, initially, like in a day, we don't get that support. It's a very gradual process. It's a very, I would say, learning process for us as well, because first meeting or first few meetings, it's just villagers talking about the river, where they are just complaining about the river. And then we have to answer to them like how the work that we are doing is going to change that scenario. And when we start doing that, when we start having these conversations, so initially also there will be a few learned people, a few people who can think about it, they will be with you. However, there will be more people who will be asking you questions. The problem is with the system that there have been many projects which are implemented so far, but due to inefficacy of these projects, the projects have not worked. They have not got the result that they needed or that they wanted. And that's why people are very skeptical about any work that is being done. There were a few people who asked us questions like, how much money are you getting for this? Are you getting profit out of this? So the mentality of the people have become very different, and that has to be changed. And that changes over the period of time. So in initial conversations or the incident that I told you about, that for the Aarti, we just went there and we started the presentation. We put up a screen and then I just started talking. So initially people were a bit reluctant. But then when they saw that, okay, this guy is talking some sense. This guy is talking or doing something for us. He's not just doing, concretization of the river. He's talking about livelihood. He's talking about, plantation. He's talking about what are the benefits. He's talking about how the ecosystem will come back. He's talking about how the fish will come back. He's talking about how the wastewater will be treated. So when these things are explained to them, then they become interested in this. And it's a very gradual process. It doesn't happen over a day or over a night, but it takes some time. And we faced a lot of criticism also in the beginning. There were people, because there were different groups in the village, and they opposed us, and then some of them supported us. So it was a mixture of all that. But in the end, when everything was done, and when when the results were visible, they were very interested in what we were doing. And interestingly, the labor that worked with us. So these labor are just, the daily wages labor. But when they were working on it and when they saw the results, they were very eager to keep working with us. So I still keep getting calls from them that if there is any work somewhere on any other river, we would like to come there. And they're like, we will come there and you just give us the daily wages, we will work with you. So that was the kind of bond that we created even with the labor.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, thank you, sir.
Sunil wanted to ask something. Please.
Have you faced any serious problem from the government machinery getting sanctions and getting things done?
Yes, there have been some problems because one of the important aspects is there is no GR for this type of work. As in, we have GRs for beautification of water body, which involves, making parks or concretization or just plantation. So there are GRs for this, but there is no GR for rejuvenation as such. So putting the work that we do into their framework has been a very big task. And unless there was some support either from political system or from the judiciary system, it was very difficult. I mean, we had a few in Pune. We had very good IAS officers who supported us. In Pune, we have worked on 2 nalas for rejuvenation of those nalas, and people have loved the projects. And the IAS officers who were there, they actually understood the importance of ecological rejuvenation and how it is going to help in urban scenario as well. So in those cases, yes, we got some support. But as I said, putting this kind of work, because it's multifaceted, it's multi-stakeholder, it's multidisciplinary, putting that together in that framework has always been a task. I would also love to know about, your take on the last question that I asked, that which approach is better. So if someone wants to talk about that, I would love to discuss that.
Yeah, Prakash, please.
Thank you, sir. It's really a great presentation, and thank you for this. The question you just raised in your last slide is really very, very interesting. And to my understanding, here comes the question of the carrying capacity of the catchment area from where the rivulet or the water body is originating.
Mm-hmm.
If carrying capacity of any area is something which is manageable, or the population load, or we can say that anthropogenic load is bearable, then natural rejuvenation can take place with certain kind of human intervention. So there is not a black and white that which approach is right. To me, it appears that if we are dealing with a city like Delhi, where Yamuna has been polluted because the carrying capacity is not sufficient to carry that much population load, or in other words, this question can be framed that whether we do urban planning or even village planning, after knowing that what is the carrying capacity of the water body. That is one question comes. So all these versus this stand there only, that whether human interference has really reached to a level where it become a chronic kind of disease, where these natural rejuvenation exercises will not bear the fruit. It will require different kind of operations where you have to do some fast mechanical processes have to be adopted for cleaning the thing. But fundamentally, you are absolutely correct that in India, if you look at in the everywhere, whether it is a big river or a small rivulet, there is a change happening. Whether this is a natural change due to in many places, I have seen that maybe due to climate or deforestation or urbanization. Typical example, I have been observing city of Dehradun for last 30-40 years, maybe more than that. Good old days, it was green, big, what is called the flood plains. You mentioned that because from the hills, in the monsoon period when water flows, big land was available both sides of that rivulet. But now urbanization has taken place and it becomes really chronic once a serious monsoon comes. And this is a failure of the urban planning, to my understanding. Or here comes the question: when you talk of Pune, that some IS officer helped you, or but these are not the part of the natural urban or rural planning process of the government. This should be, by all means. Even many of these schemes for employment generation, whereby in villages they make ponds or this. Here, I will not do justice if I don't remember the book which I recently read again for writing some review. That is the Talab Aaj Bhi Khare Hain by Sri Anupam Mishra ji. Great that about the traditional practices of maintaining water bodies in India, and how at different locations, including South, Rajasthan area or other places, what difference it makes. One of my friend has done Himalaya work that where they have rejuvenated some small rivulets by planting forest there in and around. And that was referred by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji also in one of the Mann Ki Baat. So to sum up is that there is no 0 or 1. To me, it appears that if a process which is reasonably within the control, thereby we can go for these kind of practices. But if it is much beyond the carrying capacity of that water body or that rivulet, then certainly some other kind of means have to be used for that. Thank you, sir. I thought I shall speak this. I was not intended, but anyway, great. Thank you very much.
I think, Prakashji, that's very well said, and I totally agree with you. In fact, I would like to add a couple of points here that, the basic understanding about a water body or about the river is something lacking. So usually when I start my presentation, I ask this question, whether the river flows through the city or city is located along the river. And people fail to understand that, or they cannot answer this. It's very difficult for people who are not aware of these things to understand that the river has been flowing for millions of years. And because of the benefits from that river, we started, the civilizations along the rivers. And that is the importance of these water bodies or these rivers. And as you said, there is no 0 or 1. I absolutely agree with that. However, what we are doing right now, if we were given a blank canvas, we can paint a very good picture. But what we are doing right now is all retrofitting. It's mostly the reactive approach. There is a problem of flood, or there is a possibility of flood, let's do this. Oh, there is no water supply, let's do this. Oh, there is no wastewater treatment, let's do this. But we are not planning ahead, or we are not having a proactive approach here. So that is something which is missing. And last point is, I won't say a big fan, but I realize that decentralized systems are a key to go ahead. Because putting in the infrastructure to bring all that water together or to distribute it, it's a very tedious task, it's a very energy intensive, it's a very high maintenance task. However, decentralized systems are very easy to manage. However, the problem comes that when it comes to maintenance of the decentralized systems, there is no accountability. So again, as you said, there are several aspects to it, but I'll stop here.
Thank you, Prasanna ji. In fact, I am Madan Kumar over here. In fact, the biocentric approach, and the proactive approach, and the holistic, which has been the need of the hour, and it is the desirable thing. But I was working in a Dawn Foundation where the conservation of water bodies has been a prime agenda, which we are doing in the city context, in the rural context, and in the tribal context too. The biggest challenge which we have is in the rural context is very simple, that it operates in a very single village, and where we can bring some desirable changes in a very manner in which is desirable. Whereas if we work in a city context, the changes have been different as such. Cities, in fact, like our dams, it's like a dam actually where water comes from different source and they have been using it for good whatever it is. Coming to your question, is it anthropocentric, which is basically aims on the human needs and benefits, whereas the biocentric goes on the ecosystem based as such. Making people to understand in the cities of the biocentric, their self-interest makes a very big deal, which is very difficult for us to bring the behavioral changes. In fact, when we tried for Grudumal River restoration through a future-proofing initiative of the organization, we worked with University London. So we could find out the people were very reluctant to change their behavioral habit as they've been gone to the comfort zones of whatever existing as such. It's very difficult for us to make an influence. So we've been trying to do a water balance approach where in which the water, whatever they get, how best they could use it rather than depending on the outside sources. As far as the proactive concerned, what we have been trying to do is trying to take the people to an exposure of this sort of an areas where the damages are being done and how they have been retrieved, or bringing these people to the workshop or the events where in which they try to communicate and where in which one village becomes a centric activity to communicate to the better people as such. As far as the reductionist approach in an area where sewage is blocked or any area things of stormwater or any problem comes, the best thing is only reductionist approach. We cannot afford to think about the holistic approach, which calls for changing the land use practice or removing some encroachments, which has been a very, very difficult and also challenging a part of it. So basically the context and the area. We at present have been working on a basin approach in the context of working in the tanks, moving to cascades. Now we have shifted to the basin approach of restoring water bodies, where we are trying to make the panchayats responsible for their own development, and where we have been trying to rope in the NGRA funds for the same message. But working for water deserves a Nobel Prize, and working for the cause which you have taken it is very grand, and really it's a great thing listening to you. And moreover, being at Chennai, as Vasudevji rightly said, I will also try to call on you and learn from you more, sir. Thank you, sir.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Madanji. And as you said, the way I look at it, as in we have come to a point where it's either punishment or reward system. And we have been getting punished because of our doings in the past. And because of that, it's all working on punishment system. And then, that's why there is this reactive approach. But the rewards, as you said, like when it comes to biological systems, all the rewards are usually very long term. And understanding, for people to understand what are the rewards, as you said, so there is this current comfort zone, and giving them the understanding of a bigger comfort zone which comes through all these ecological functions or through rejuvenation of these water bodies, and what are the benefits that they are going to get. Understanding that bigger picture is a bit of a problem, and I think which can happen through several case studies like this, where people have benefited in the long term. I'm not talking about 50 years or 100 years. 50 years or 100 years, the picture will be beautiful if these approaches are used. But however, even in 2 years, 3 years, people start seeing these benefits. The fishermen start getting livelihood, people enjoy the temperature regulation, people enjoy a good stroll around the river where it is not a smelly river. So these are, I would say, mid-term benefits that can also be portrayed in a very good way to the people who are not able to understand that bigger picture of the benefits and bigger comfort.
True, sir. True, sir.
Hello, Dr. Prasanna. I'm Deepesh.
Hello.
Hi. So you were talking about this approach in the end. So I always believe like nature-centric approach is the only way forward, because the constant aggressive development plans of the current systems is destroying our like nature little by little, right? But still, Earth always seeks like to create a balance and restore its ecological balance by itself. But our constant activity, like you said, the solid waste management, constantly by seeing each other. So when did we start throwing waste outside into the rivers? By seeing each other. So these things, this behavioral change and all has beautifully changed from your end. Like for example, you said the phytoremediation in small things. So those habits made them see it beautiful. So they stopped throwing garbage outside. So these kind of small things has to be implemented in everywhere. So for example, local panchayats again, right now there are a lot of panchayats and then they don't value their water bodies, right? They start throwing it. So these kind of educational activities needs to be provided so that they will understand nature and start restoring their ecological balance, because they need to believe that this land, air, water. So this human-centric approach makes them think that these are all belonging to them and they can rule over all of this. So that needs to be changed. So, but basically, this individual action can achieve a positive change, and this will again inspire many other individuals by seeing each other. So we cannot foresee it, so it will happen. So I always believe this word from Rachel Carson. She's an environmentalist. She always says, "At a war against nature is inevitably a war against ourselves." Right. Yes. So we need to focus more on nature-based solutions. And I run a social enterprise called Nanyang. So basically, I work on helping individuals and communities to compost that source in a nature-based way. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I would like to team up and do many things with you. Yeah.
Sure, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes. Thank you so
And-
much, Dr. Prasanna. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And just one comment on this, as in when we talk about the climate change and the effects of climate change, so there is a concept of earth economics. So I'm sure you all must have heard about it. And when we talk about economics, it's, let's say, between the countries, between the cities, between the states, and it's give and take. But then, as a planet, for Earth, there is no other planet to give and take. There is no import and export. So all the resources that we have are very limited. So this is, a bigger understanding. I'm sure it's going to be very difficult to explain it to, a normal citizen or a normal resident of any particular area. But if that citizen gets the understanding of Earth economics, wouldn't that be beautiful?
Personally, I'm happy that we have talked about the earth economics. Precisely, our present project is trying to answer those things. We require your cooperation further in this particular project.
Definitely. I'm always
Thanks a
happy.
lot. Thanks a lot. But then I think now we can switch out our already 11:15. So we'll switch out to our other, because question answer will be endless. Otherwise we'll go on talking. We'll have to stop somewhere. Thanks, Prasanna.
Sure. And if anybody is interested in discussing it further, please feel free to, call me or email me, and I'll be happy to have that discussion.
Very good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you can put your email ID and the phone number over in the chat box, which will enable them to get related, Prasanna ji.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Over to